What's up, CUT Collective? It's Reverend Sheree here with our Sunday Sermon Rewind series. I'm so grateful. The series we're in now is called From Breakdown to Breakthrough. And I want to tell you that we had some breakdown in our technology for these rewinds, but here we got a breakthrough because today we are back. We're actually going to revisit the series. We're going to recap today. I got Reverend Wells in queue for us today for a powerful conversation. So let me invite him on into the scene. Reverend Wells, how are you today?
I'm doing amazing, Rev. And it's always a wonderful, wonderful time being with the family. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to getting into it and recapping and unpacking how we make the most of what we've been given so far.
Yeah, I mean, this series has been fire, pure fire. And I get the pleasure of breaking it down. Like I shared with him earlier that I have had a difficult time finding these clips. And so I want to invite you, all of you out there, when you listen to the sermon, take a few notes and then put it in our Facebook group. The collective has its own Facebook group, and say, I want to hear more about this point, and I'll make sure to pull that clip for you, and we'll bring it into the next rewind. So let's just keep it coming. I got a couple today from your suggestions, and we'll get to that in a moment. But all right, I'm gonna get right in because we got a lot to cover today. And so this is from this past Sunday sermon, but we're going to talk about the entire series today. So you'll see that coming up.
In this series, turning breakdowns into breakthroughs. And as we've gone through this experience so far, we've explored exactly where we are to place the responsibility. I use the word blame, but you all know how to hear with metaphysical ears. So I said blame, but I know you heard responsibility. But who we have to place the responsibility on for turning the breakdown into breakthrough.
But most people won't make the adjustments they know they need to make in order to move themselves from breakdown to breakthrough. And so they wind up in the same situation, condition, and circumstance for much longer than they should be. They can't see themselves outside of what it is they're going through. They're wearing their breakdown. See, if you really want to do better, you'll find a way. And if you don't, you'll find an excuse. Put this in your notes. Excuse making and blaming is a form of self-sabotage. Excuse making and blaming is a form of self-sabotage. Now, sometimes what looks like self-sabotage is behavior that we've learned to apply to our previous state of breakdown. Stay with me. So Jesus asks the sick man, do you want to be made well? And the sick man answers, sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the waters are stirred up. And while I am making my way down, someone jumps ahead of me. Excuse and blame.
All right. That was a powerful clip. So the part that I want you to talk a little bit more about is the very idea that we have these patterns, right? And so the lame man in the story, the sick man in the story, had been caught up in his patterns for a long time. And immediately upon asking a question about what he desired, he came up with those two things, right? So
Yes.
how do you break that pattern?
so when it comes to breaking out of a pattern, well, so let me say this first, because just in hearing that back, so I often listen to the lesson, but to see how I can improve in my craft.
Mm-hmm.
And so listening in that moment, like I'm like, man, like that's kind of hot, dog. Like, man, like, yeah, they say preach. I'm like, man, that's some fire. So let me just get that out the way.
I get you. I tell you, I'm listening, and I like what I see.
Right. So when it comes to interrupting our pattern, we have to do one of two things. Either we have to change the pattern, or we have to change our expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And here's what I mean. If like the man by the pool, we don't change the pattern, then we have to change the expectation that things can be better.
Right.
Right. Now, if you will adjust the pattern, then I can hold on to my expectation that things will improve. I can turn my breakdown into a breakthrough. But it's not until I interrupt or disrupt and change my pattern that I can move myself into the new possibility of breakthrough, right? That as we said before, like the possibility for breakthrough always exists, but things don't improve by chance, they improve by change. So I have to change what I've been doing. I have to change what I've been saying. I have to change what I've been thinking if my true desire and intention is to change what I'm experiencing.
I always like to interject when we start talking about changing our minds, that's the power of affirmation, right? Speaking the word of truth so that you can start to interrupt those thought patterns that you have. Sometimes we're looking for something so deep, but an affirmation can be that first thing. I mean, you got to do the other things. You got to not just say the word, but then you have to start to act in alignment with it and to align your feelings with it. All right. So
let me just, so for our guy, his affirmation is his experience. So he's affirming what he's been going through, like many of us, rather than speaking life into what we desire. We talk about what we're going through. So he's practicing, he's well versed in his excuses, he's well versed in who's to blame, but none of those things are transformational, right? And so in connecting with the Christ, he has an opportunity to experience transformation that's beyond the excuse or the blame.
That story is so we are in that first sermon with the story that we worked with was Jesus and healing the man at the pool of Bethesda. So this second clip, we're moving into the lesson where the focus is on failure, right? When your breakdown feels like a failure, and Peter is at the heart of this lesson. So I'm gonna pull that up and let's dive in.
Okay. And then on last week, we explored what it is we need to do when the breakdown feels like failure. When we're faced with doing something that appears to be impossible, oftentimes our biggest obstacle is our fear. And oftentimes the thing that undergirds the fear is that lack of self-esteem. Because we all possess greater powers than we realize. Fear is the reason we sell ourselves short and settle for less than we're capable of. Fear is the reason we find ourselves not doing that which we know we have it within us to do. And the stronger emotion will always overcome the weaker emotion. And I submit to you that everything you need in order to move from the sense of failure and fear to faith is right within you. Everything you needed in order to turn your seeming breakdown into an amazing breakthrough is right within you, But you've got to believe you have what it takes in order to get it done. And you've got to know how to call on God as substance to show up.
Are you still equally impressed with yourself?
What did Reverend Della used to say? What did she call it?
That you're not properly impressed, right?
That's it right there. That's it right there.
I love it. I love it. So fear, right? Fear. And we're looking at faith. One of the things I like with when I'm studying Peter is that he didn't get it right all the time, right? That we get to see that faith is something that develops in us. And I like the idea where I can come at this again. I can come at this again. Tell me a little bit about, you said it's not the events in our lives that shape us, but rather our thoughts and feelings about them.
Right. So we know that it's consciousness that produces form, or it's how I think and feel about the experience that really determines what the experience means to me. Right. So as I'm going through it, I may be tempted to be influenced by what the appearances, the experience is suggesting to me. But those appearances only tell part of the story. And so to the extent that I can reclaim my agency, to the extent that I reclaim my personal power, I can ground myself in the truth and then still go through the storm. So I'm not suggesting that the storm won't still be there. You'll still go through the storm. We'll still have the challenges, the breakdowns, the opportunities to learn and grow, however we classify them. Those things are a part of the soul school of life. So those things will still be there, but we can determine how it is we go through them. So do I go through being intimidated and overwhelmed by the fear, or do I go through it in faith? And so as you said, one of the things I really appreciate about Peter is that he challenges, I think, the Christian metaphysician to confront that we don't always get it right the first time, right? That ideal possibility or that ideal potential is sometimes rarely reached. And so we have to continue to come back to the baseline. We have to come back to the truth. We have to remember, we say, primary cause of suffering is forgetfulness. So we have to remember the truth we know, the truth we've been taught, all of that stuff that's down in there. We have to recall that. We have to remember it in the midst of the experience so that we can have that to serve, to undergird us as we're going through the storm, if you will.
And that, and the fact that we study, because sometimes it's like, well, why do I have to study? It's so that it is in there to be pulled out, right? Like it is, that's why we keep working with this, and so that I can have something to remember, right? Like if forgetting is what causes me to suffer, what's in there for me to pull on and remember? And if you listen to people share testimony, you can hear their moment of remembrance. You can hear when they remember who they are, when they remember something greater than what they're experiencing. Absolutely. And then that's when things start to shift.
Yeah. And one of the other things that study does for us is it helps the truth become the default position, right? So that when the breakdown occurs, I don't lose it. You know what I'm saying? Like, because sometimes life hits you upside the head in a certain way that it knocks you senseless, right? Like sometimes life hits you and it knocks the faith out of you, right? And so if I'm knocked out of faith and my default position is truth, then once I start to clear the cobwebs, what do I come back to? I come back to the truth I know, rather than the appearance or the expression as it's presenting itself. So that's why I think in that title, like the key word there really is seems like failure, right? Because we know that the failure is really just a message. It's just feedback. It's saying to us that something you're doing is not working. if
But
this is
that's a major shift right there, though, to think of failure as feedback as opposed to a like a definition of who you are and your capabilities. But that this is just giving me feedback on what I just did and how
right,
I was thinking and what I was thinking about myself. Just feedback.
right. But see,
Yeah.
of course, because if in truth you are all that God is, then there is no way for you to personally be a failure,
Mhm.
right? I might miss the mark of what I intended. I might not get the results that I intended, but not getting that does not make me a failure. It just simply says that the approach you took does not work. Try a different approach.
Right.
And so, to the extent that I can remember that, I'm no longer left thinking that the only option is to personalize the feedback,
Mhm.
right? So, a failure is not a person, a failure is an event.
Perfect. All right. All right. So we had these two sermons kind of revving us up. And then he came up at bat just this past Sunday with the fire. So we're going to talk about this next shift where we've talked about when your breakdown is around responsibility, blaming yourself, being caught in blame, now being caught in the mindset of failure, and how to break through that. And here we got number 3 coming up right here.
One of the first things we have to be able to do when we find ourselves mired in breakdown is we have to be able to grab hold of these words as presented by Jesus. Do not fear, only believe. That's a powerful first step whenever we find ourselves experiencing breakdown. See, it's not the events of our lives that shape us, but rather our thoughts and beliefs as to what those events mean.
Muted. You talked a little bit about this already, right?
Yeah.
That about that it's not that these what you think about your experience is. I think about that we're always assigning meaning to what we're doing, right?
Absolutely.
And so you can say that this is the end of the road for me. But you're assigning the meaning to it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no,
It's
like
so powerful.
it's just a natural human function, right? In order for us to be able to be with a thing, it has to make sense to us. And so one of the ways we help things make sense is by giving them meaning. And so an experience out of context with the meaning we provided is something that means nothing to us.
Right.
But in order to make that experience mean something to us, we shape it, we box it, we firm it up. And one of the ways we do that is by assigning the meaning to it. So this experience means X about me, right? And what's key to remember is that it can be factual, but it may not be true.
And you can assign another meaning. Like even if you say, you know what, this is the worst thing. That's you know what? No, this is my turning point. You know, like you name it what you want to experience.
Absolutely.
We have naming power.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we are here acting like we're weather reporters. No, you can name this is what I'm getting ready to walk into.
Right. And one of the things I hope people are doing, even as I describe or share synonyms for breakdown. Like I'm not using that as a point of reference for truth. I'm using it as a point of reference for experience. But I think I've also said, like, you can call it what you want to call it. I might be using the word failure. I might be using the word difficulty. I might be using the word hardship. I might be using the word breakdown. You can use the word turning point for the experience you're having, right? Like it doesn't have to be how I'm defining it and classifying it. I'm using that term because as many people go through it, they can relate to that term, right? But if you are a true student, then you might be more inclined to say, to consider the breakdown as an opportunity to learn, grow, and expand. So the meaning we assign to it, I agree, should absolutely be consistent with the consciousness with which we intend to go through the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because
or reach for the higher one. I say, and I try to reach for that higher one, right?
Yeah.
Because I could be feeling like this is the end of the world, but I gotta work on assigning a new meaning to this. I gotta work on that. Maybe this is the end of a season, and it was time for that season to end, but I need to reframe it.
Absolutely. And here is the reality. For as many times as we've been through stuff like this, we know it's not the end of the world. Right? So like, stop pretending like you packed your bag to take that trip. Like, you know it's not the end of the world.
That's right. Oh, all right. So this next clip, I'm just going to call it the School of Life. And I think that this is a response to the question, at least for me it was, why is this happening to me? Like, I'm a good girl. I study. I do good for people. Why is this happening to me? So let's see why it happens to you.
All right.
I would love to be able to stand here and tell you that as a Christian metaphysician, you won't go through anything. But the school of life insists that you go through the test in order to prove the truth you say you know. The school of life refuses to let anyone pass from one grade to the next until they prove competency. And so then, life or consciousness insists on producing the test to make you say, spiritual being, huh? Truth student, huh? Been to class, huh? Say you know how to pray, huh? You're a meditator, huh? Read all the books, huh? Let's see how committed you are to the truth you say you believe.
That's a good punch.
Yeah, that's low, dog.
That's
That's low, dog. Man, that's low, dog. Come on, man.
that was a gut punch.
Yeah, that's a body blow.
Yeah. I mean, we say that we have, when we're feeling good, everything's great. It's like, I'm powerful. I know the truth. God is good. Something as simple as God is good. When you're having an experience that does not feel good, and you can't seem to cycle out of it, is God still good? Let's see how committed you are to the truth you say you believe. I had to stop the whole thing. That actually kind of knocked me off my assignment for a minute, because I don't like the idea of a God that is testing me, right? But I love the distinction. I don't believe in a God that's testing me, but I love the distinction you made about how life it's life projecting you back to you.
That's all, right? Because if I live out of my own consciousness, if I live out of my own awareness, as the title of one of the books offers, I am always my own experience. Now, to the extent that I can align myself with the truth, then I can find that I am able to access more power when I go through the experience. But here again, being able to access more power, or being able to affirm and believe and stand on the truth that I am one with God and one with all people and one with all life and one with the one, does not preempt me from the experience, right? The crucifixion experience is a part of the expression of consciousness, right? And so we all get our turn at the cross of consciousness. Like, it's just a part of how we show proficiency when we do more than talk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you are, one of the things, because it's very easy to beat yourself up with this stuff, right? Like, oh my gosh, I didn't show how committed I was to the truth I said I believe, but it's feedback, right? That, okay, I got some space to grow here. Like that's well, in school, that's what the test is. You get some feedback on how much did you retain? How much are you just parroting back or do you know?
Yeah, and on some proficiency tests, it's not simply a question of how much you know or how well you know it. It's how well can you apply it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so for the Christian metaphysician or for the New Thought metaphysician who holds that there's a pragmatic approach to this truth, then we have to be able to live into the truth that we know. So I agree with you 1,000%. It's not about, as a matter of fact, there's very little value in beating yourself up about where you are and what you demonstrate, right? There's like, again, there's no transformation in that. The real power is in being able to pay attention to the feedback and make whatever adjustments you see you need to make in order to produce the result you say you desire, right? And so in this particular scripture, Peter's no, this is the last one.
This this one was Jesus visiting the house and
Oh yeah.
taking James, John. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. And so here, one of the things I think that's important in this particular story is Jesus having to, in all of his high consciousness, Jesus still recognizing that if there aren't some things that he puts out of here, he's not going to be able to do the thing he believes he can do.
Mhm.
Right? If I don't quiet this noise, if I don't quiet this commotion, it's going to impact my ability to have this demonstration. Right?
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
the circumstances around which the tests show up are always consistent with what the student needs to present or what the lesson the student needs to learn.
Isn't that something that what's being presented to you is what you need to learn? Stop fighting your experience. There's something for you in it. There's something for you in it. And some of
Everything,
it's like, let me get the lesson real quick because I'm ready to be on to.
no, everything is exactly as it is supposed to be. Can you deal with that?
Okay,
Like
yeah.
I was talking with somebody the other day, and they remarked about how things should be, or how things should be better. Like there is no should. Like the things are the way they are in this moment. Is there room for improvement? Absolutely, but
Yeah.
there is no should. It just is what it is in this moment. Now, what are we gonna do about it?
Yep, that's it. That's it. And I think that's what's the powerful part of this series is I like when I love practical Christianity. I like that it's not just laying out a bunch of facts. It's like, hey, you got to be active and participating in your own experience.
Absolutely.
And so like I said, I'm getting ready to play a clip now. If you thought that one was the gut punch, I don't know if this is the gut punch. I think this might be the mind punch. Like it just, okay, all right, let me go. Let me put it in. Let me put it
I love to put pressure on our brains. I do.
in.
I love to put pressure on our thinking.
That's right. Think a new thought. How about that?
Come on now.
How many of you know if we really get through all of the stuff, there is nothing opposing us except for our subconscious patterns of inferiority and frustration. We don't have because we don't yet have the subconscious pattern to produce the thing we say we want. The truth, capital T truth, is not necessarily in the appearance of things. In order to get to the capital T truth, you have to know how to look beyond the appearance of things.
Okay. So the subconscious patterns.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about subconscious patterns.
So, so here's one of the ways. Here's one of the handles,
Oh, no.
or one of the lenses through which I see it. So we all have things that we want but don't have, and we all have things we don't want but do have. And to the extent that we program and design new subconscious patterns is the extent toward which we release the things we don't want and make way and room for the things we do want. And so when we think about subconscious patterns, we know that the subconscious nature always finds alignment with the thinking nature, right? So for every belief, feeling, emotion, or movement in the subconscious, there is a thought or decision or some analysis that resonates with that.
Mm-hmm.
And to the extent that I hold one thought pattern more than the other, it impresses what I believe even further, right? And so if I believe subconsciously that I'm unworthy, then it really doesn't matter how much I affirm that I'm worthy until I start to hold the affirmation of worthiness that exceeds the subconscious pattern of unworthiness.
And I think that's the thing is the work that it will take to create new impressions. That it is, I've been saying I'm rich every day. I wake up every morning and I affirm I am rich, and I'm still struggling. I still got debt. But it is a shift in a financial consciousness, like, is a persistent, every moment remembrance of your divine nature. I think about it like when we are having an acute experience, right? So if you're having a hospital experience, everything is focused on overcoming that experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, that's why you go away for it. You're coming apart for that.
Yep. The environment, what they feed you, who you see, who you talk to, everything
It's
is
all about that, all about your healing in that one thing, right?
yes.
I think that when it comes to something that is an experience, acute experience, as opposed to something like in our body, like in our minds, like, oh, let me go to the doctor. Well, if my money's not right, let me check myself in to a place where I can just get that back in alignment. And that affirmation of I'm rich, I'm wealthy, I am abundantly supplied, God is my rich resource. If I keep working with that until that feeling of I don't have enough, like until the feeling of I don't have enough, they keep working with you until your blood pressure is balanced. They keep working with you until your breathing and your oxygen levels are right. You got to keep working with that affirmation until the feeling of not having enough is gone.
Yeah. So because the pattern, the program pattern of not enoughness rarely needs as much attention as the program pattern of exceedingly abundant.
Yes.
Right. I haven't come across anyone yet who has intentionally worked on making weeds grow in their lawn. Somehow the weeds just naturally, automatically, without being told, they just naturally show up, right? The patterns for those are there and they persist.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want them, you have to treat them. And you have to be persistent in how you treat them. Now, conversely, if you want healthy green grass, you gotta care for it. You've got to nurture it. You've got to water it. Like there's so much more that you have to do in order to have a healthy lawn than you have to do in order to have a weed-filled lawn. And the interesting part is, if we don't tend to the weeds, they'll overtake our garden. So it is with subconscious patterns that are inconsistent with what we want to experience. If we don't consistently tend to those those beliefs, then they will take over the garden of our life. And we're trying to figure out like why is this? Like, I've been affirming this day in and day out. But if I affirm it but don't believe it, right? I've got to do the work. There is no way around doing the work. And so when I'm writing out the check for my light bill and my gas bill and my water bill, I need to be in the consciousness of abundance, even though I'm writing out the last few dollars in my account to pay these bills, right? When I go out to eat, whether the bill is a lot or a little, I've got to find a way to put myself moment by moment in the flow of an abundant, easy flowing source that is always ready to meet my every need. And I have to do that time and time and time and time again, even though I don't have to rehearse the belief of not enoughness. Like, I don't know what it is about the human conditioning, but the sense that we are not enough or there is not enough is one that prevails with us. And our work is to expand ourselves beyond that sense of not enoughness and to do it moment by moment, because there are lots of things attempting to impress us to the erroneous belief.
I mean, I think that the power right now, right, is the wake up, right? Waking up to the idea that there's a pattern working in my life, right? That there's just a pattern that keeps playing itself out. So I can change a pattern. There are other patterns I can work with. But just that aha, it's an aha when you catch yourself in a pattern. Like, oh, it's me, oh Lord. Wait a minute. So let me play this one.
Okay.
Results are always an inside job. And my results are an outward expression of an inner conditioning of my subconscious mind. I want you to get this. And so when Jesus says, do not fear, only believe, he's trying to get him to recondition his subconscious mind. Both fear, the emotion of fear, and belief are subconscious characteristics. Don't miss it. And so the Christ is trying to directly influence how we believe and how we feel. Stay with me. It's a reminder that there is a part of the mind that we are not fully aware of, but it's always influencing our actions and our feelings.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm gonna keep going with this one. Then we'll come in.
But that's
If
tough
life
right there.
It is.
doesn't seem to be supplying you with what you need, if it doesn't seem to be supplying you with your desires, it's not because the universe is malfunctioning. It's not because God is not on the job. It's because subconsciously, I am asking for and expecting something I don't believe I can have.
All right. You came with you ain't come to make friends that Sunday, are you?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna tell you what. It went down easier when I was teaching it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it went down easier when I was teaching it. This is man, this is good. This is good. If I was G, I would say this is hard. This is the hardcore.
The hardcore metaphysics. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
this is a little this is for the true student. This is not for the faint
Yeah.
of heart.
Yeah.
As a matter of
No,
fact,
no.
we need a disclaimer when we put this service on YouTube. We need a disclaimer. This service is not for the faint of heart or the faint of truth. But it didn't feel like that when I was teaching it in the moment. Right?
I'm sure it felt real sweet. It was sweet.
That's the anointing of the Holy Spirit right there.
So wait a minute. I want to, because I played 2 back to back. I really shouldn't have, now that I think about it. Because here's the thing: you said that the Christ is directly influencing what we think and feel. That's when you're getting that insight, it is a direct influence on what you think and feel. Talk to me a little about that, because we're talking about the inner conditioning of the subconscious mind.
Right. So we say that consciousness is pivotal, right? And so we say one of the things that we have to do in our practice is consistently turn to that Christ mind, or that divine mind, and allow that to be what influences us as we're going through our moment by moment experience. Mm-hmm. And as the Christ is attempting to influence us, oftentimes is saying, don't fear, only believe. And once I get that, now I have to determine what I'm going to do with what I've been given. Right. And so if I believe, like we say, learning to listen to the whispering of the still small voice within us or within me will ensure that I'm guided into right action, then I will believe and I will not fear. Mm-hmm. That's one of the options. The other option, as we've been saying this afternoon, is to be conditioned by the experience. Because and like as he's talking to the leader of the synagogue, like he's going through a life altering experience. It's like being told, I imagine it's like being told that you have X number of days, months, weeks to live, right? And what do you do with that? Mm-hmm. It's like being told that your job is ending in 2 weeks and you've got responsibilities, you got bills, you got a family. Like, what do you do with that? It's like being told that the person you trusted with your money ran off with it. What do you do with that? You were planning to go into business with that person. That person proved to be untrustworthy. What do you do with that? Right? And so what Jesus is attempting to help the man to see is that he has to reclaim his power in the moment, because what you're faced with is going to require you to get beyond the emotional charge of what it looks like you're losing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And so he's got a choice to make. He really just presents him with the option to believe. And if you can believe, it can be done unto you as you believe. If you don't believe and you stay in fear, then it's much more likely that the appearance wins, that you circle the drain down further into the despair of the experience.
Right. And that's the worst place to be. It's the worst place to be. I know that frustration, but you can shift that thought at any time. You can shift that thought at any time. You said in this last one, and I got a few more to go. I'm looking at the time. Asking but not believing, right? That sometimes it's like our frustration can come because we keep asking, we keep praying and journaling and all of that for a desire, but underneath that is there's no belief that you can really have it. Talk to me just a couple of things. If that's you, if that just spoke to somebody where they've been on their knees praying, they've been all the ways praying for something but not having it. talked about how you could impact that belief.
Yeah, so that can be a tough one for us, right? Because I believe we've all been there, been at the place of committed, consistent, and persistent holding out hope, if you will, for the desire.
Mm-hmm.
And the longer you stay in that disposition, the more you stay in prayer, it seems like it's the further and further away the desire is. And one of the things that can potentially happen is that we lose faith. Or like there's a scripture in the Old Testament. It says, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick." And so the longer it's put off, the more I start to build up this belief that it's not really going to happen. And I start to now condition myself for life without the thing in my prayers I'm still asking for.
Right.
And so in this dual state of awareness, in this double-mindedness, I'm not really able to be grounded in the truth or the lie, because I keep one foot in the possibility and one foot in the it's not going to happen camp.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do when we find ourselves losing hope or feeling like we're asking, but it's not going to happen? That's when it's time to reestablish again that belief, right? And so when it comes to challenging the belief that it's not possible, there are three techniques that I like to employ. One is distraction, one is disruption, and the other is dispute, right? So when I find myself in the pattern of that ruminant thought that's telling me, even though you're asking, it's not going to happen, one of the things that I like to do is distract myself from that, right? So, like I've got my beads on here right now. If I was having an experience like that and I found myself in a pattern where I'm hearing the unbelief, I might just snap one of my beads to just trigger me into a different thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just to
Mm-hmm.
take my mind off that ruminant thought. And like a ruminant owl, like a ruminant animal, or like a cow will chew the cud over and over and over again and swallow it down, spit it back up, right? Swallow it down, spit it back up. And sometimes we do that same thing in consciousness with an unproductive thought or with an unproductive belief. Yeah. The second thing is to disrupt that thought, to challenge it, right? To knock the legs, as one speaker says, to knock the legs from underneath the belief. If my erroneous belief is able to stand, it's going to stand on the legs that I provide for it. Right. Even if somebody gives me an erroneous belief, in order for that belief to have residence in my consciousness, I've got to give it legs to stand on. And so once I realize I've given an unproductive belief legs to stand on, if I want it to no longer stand, I just knock the legs from under it, right? How do you knock the legs from under it? By challenging it, right? By challenging the validity of it, by challenging the truth of it. Hold it up to the light of truth and see if it endures. And if it doesn't endure, then through my disputation of it, I can embrace a new belief, because I've already convinced myself that this belief is not enduring, it's not standing. It's telling me that there is no hope, but there is always hope. It's telling me that there is no way, but the last time it looked like I didn't have a way, I found a way. And so now what? There's always a way, right? The last time I was in a state of breakdown, and I didn't know what to do. I got the insight, I got the inspiration, I had the momentum shift, and I was able to move from where I was to where I was supposed to be. I have to be able to stay in the belief of the possibility, though. And so that's one of the more powerful approaches to help us shift out of unproductive patterns of belief, or when we're asking but we don't believe. that can put us into the flow of the real possibility in the belief and establishing new beliefs.
Yeah, that was powerful. That was powerful. Distraction, disruption, dispute. So what you can literally begin to do. I love the bracelet thing. That's one of my favorites. Switching a bracelet, a ring, but just those little things help me to stop. And sometimes it's like, nope, 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 nope. You know, just like we're not even going down that path. Nope, nope,
Right, not
nope.
doing it. Absolutely.
All right, I think I sped up past what. Let me see, because I don't want to keep you all day.
Feeling becomes my reality.
Wait a minute, here you go.
The law of belief says that whatever I believe with feeling becomes my reality. The law of space says you can't put two things in the same spot at the same time. And so if I have a belief that does not support my breakthrough, I have to rid myself of that belief in order to create the space where I can hold a belief where breakthrough is possible.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's right.
Because the subconscious mind makes everything you say and do fit the pattern that is consistent with your programmed self-concept.
I don't hear you, Ree.
Subconscious mind makes everything you say and do fit the pattern that is consistent with your programmed self-concept.
I can't hear you.
So Jesus says to him,
we did a whole thing just to break that sentence down. Like just one more time. One more time. Oh, shoot. I went too far. Don't go too far, Sheree.
Eve, breakthrough, then no breakthrough happens.
No, that's not it. I lost it. Okay, I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it. You're talking about that your subconscious mind is playing out your self-concept.
Yes.
So when you, I mean, 'cause this is, I think, the eye-opening piece of like, why is this happening to me? Why am I caught up in this? It's like, this is who you believe you are.
And here, like, so if we refuse to deceive ourselves, then we know that's where we've been. Mm-hmm. Right? We know we've at least in the dark danced with these things. Now we may not be committed to dancing with them in the light of day, but we know that in the dark we dance with these things, we play with these things, right? We sometimes take out the dead things and we play with them. And so when they reappear in our lives, we don't know where it came from. Well, if consciousness produces form, I do know where it came from. Right? If I'm confronted with an experience, and I'm not getting the results I want, I know that at some point or another, I've contemplated what it's like to not be a part of that. Right? Mm-hmm. What it's like to split my focus and intention to something else. What it's like to pay attention to something else because I'm not really sure this is going to work. Right? And so the way I'm seeing myself is a part of how my consciousness shows up, right? Mm-hmm. Just like in our first guy who was by the pool of Bethesda for all that time, just like Peter, who is so resolute in the fact that he will never deny Jesus. Even says it, like, even if I have to die with you, I'm ready to die with you. But what have we seen from Peter as a consistent part of his identity? He's wishy-washy. We know this about him, right? It's not a surprise. Like, none of us should be surprised when we get to the part of the story where Peter denies Jesus. It's a part of his identity pattern. When he's walking on the water, he's feeling amazing, and then the wind blows, he takes his eyes off the possibility, and what happens? He starts to sink.
It started to sink in, right?
It's how Peter gets down. Like, let's just call the thing what it is, so that when it shows up in this other experience, I don't have to pretend like I don't know where that came from. I know that is consistent with where I've been, if not physically, at least mentally and emotionally, or in my thoughts and beliefs. And so when my thoughts and beliefs show up in my experience, I get the opportunity to own them. And to the extent that I own them, I empower myself to hold new thoughts and beliefs so that I can discard the ones that don't work for me and embrace ones that do. But it's a waste of energy, effort, and consciousness to pretend like I don't know where this is coming from. Like even back to the biblical narrative from last week, like the people who are keeping up the commotion around the synagogue leader's house, this is not their first time at this house. Like, when these people show up, they bring commotion with them. Right. They're not in a state of noise and commotion just because this is the experience. That's the noise and commotion that's always with us when things get hot. Right?
Yep.
We got to decide whether or not we let that noise play in the background, that noise again that says we're not enough, the noise that says we're not smart enough, the noise that says we don't have what it takes, the noise that says you don't have the money to make this deal work. That noise is playing in the background. And the Christ within us is saying, you got to put that out, because not even I can have the demonstration with that noise in the background. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not taking that in with me. Get it out of here.
Yeah. Oh, so okay, because you're talking about something. Annette Whittington wanted to hear more about that. So you right in the lane of where she said she wanted to hear you talk some more about this. So I'm going to play, I think this is the clip. It was the law of belief in space. And then she wanted to talk about Peter, James, and John.
Okay.
As you're talking about who are you specifically selecting to be around you?
Yes.
So I'm going to see, I may have to jump this forward a little bit. Let's see where we start.
And so you can think truth and believe.
That's not it.
But you have to be highly intentional about what you pay attention to. You have to intentionally manage what you listen to. Peter, James, and John. Why Peter or faith? Because faith is the conviction that the appearance is not the end of the story. John is there because love is the ability to attract, to harmonize, and to unify. When I'm working on my breakthrough, am I cooperating with the fear, or am I cooperating with the perfect love that casts out fear? Faith, love, wisdom. Why wisdom? Because wisdom, or James, is the ability to evaluate, to discern, and then to act on what we've learned. Wisdom helps you quiet the commotion. Wisdom helps you discern what to put out.
So we're going to close out on faith, wisdom, and love. Faith, wisdom, and love. So talk to me just really quickly about choosing what you're listening to at the moment of, I won't say the moment of crisis, but at the moment when your situation is screaming at you.
Mm-hmm. Right. So when the noise is blaring, we know that noise, it's been well researched. Noise has the ability to not only impact our creativity, but also impact our actions. Right? There was some research done with this group of seminary students, and the subject had a stack of books, and as the seminary students were leaving one class and going to the next, the subject would drop the books to see how many seminary students help the subject pick up their books before rushing off to their next class. And so for one of the groups, they ran that experiment with no noise. For another group, they ran that experiment with a lawnmower blaring in the background. And so for the first group, I think something like 7 or 8 out of 10 people stopped to help the one student pick up their books when there was no noise going. In the second part of the experiment, something like 3 out of 10 people, seminary students, followers of Christ, stopped to help someone in need as they were on their way rushing to the next class. And so they determined that the students who didn't stop were impacted by the noise. Like they're already in a rush, but the noise impacted their ability to be love and expression, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we see Jesus being highly intentional about what he can do based upon how noisy it is. And so before they even get to the noise, Jesus calls Peter, James, and John. Again, Peter, just the conviction to walk by faith and not by sight. The ability to keep taking those steps, even though things don't yet appear as though we desire them to be. Faith is a critical factor whenever we're working on turning our breakdown into breakthrough. We know that. Mm-hmm. And let's just call faith another form of belief, or an alternate form of belief. Love is critical because it will help magnetize us to our breakthrough if we're focused on it, right? We know that love is an attractor. Love is a harmonizer. Love will also help us not be so hard or down on ourselves as we're going through, right? Self-love is one of the things that can keep me from blaming myself as I'm going and turning my breakdown into breakthrough. Mm-hmm. And wisdom is so critical because, again, it helps us discern what to put out. If love were left to its own device, it might not have the heart to put out those things that ought to be put out, right? Love is just a natural attractor. So love might find a way to be okay with the noise. Love might find a way to be okay with the disrespect. Mm-hmm. Love might find a way to be okay with the discontent because its approach is to unify. But there are some things that you ought not be unified with as you're going through certain other things, right? Everything is not healthy enough to go with you. And so once you realize that, you need to be able to evaluate and discern what needs to be cut loose, who needs to be cut loose, what behaviors need to be cut loose, what thoughts and emotions need to be cut loose and put outside so that we can clear the way for the greatest possibility to emerge, right? Again, if the law of space says two things can't occupy the same space at the same time, that means something's got to move. There's something in my soul consciousness right now that is in the way of my breakthrough. And if I don't clean it out, if I don't move it out, there is no space for my new opportunity, right? I can't find the new relationship because I'm holding on to the old relationship that doesn't work. I can't find the new opportunity because I'm holding on to the old opportunity that's proven that it doesn't work. It's outlived its utility. And so wisdom says, let's just deal with it objectively. Mm-hmm. Like, let's just evaluate it on the face of what it is. And it's not saying that they're not good people. It's just saying that they're people who don't believe that what we believe, right? The noisy, commotion-making ones are like, why do you even bother the teacher? There's no hope here. And wisdom is saying, that's inconsistent with what we say we want. Let's put that out, right? So that's why we bring faith, love, and wisdom along with the Christ to support the thinking and feeling. So we got Jesus, Peter, John, James, the Father, and the Mother, and then the experience. Those are the ones that go into the house of consciousness to get to work on the turning the breakdown into a breakthrough.
It is. So it's key, I think, that we figure out who's mission critical, right?
Mhm.
Like who is mission critical,
Good
and
phrase.
that's the heart of it. And I think it can be heartbreaking because somebody that you really care about or who's really invested in you might not be mission critical. Some thought pattern or something that worked for you in the past may not work. It's not mission critical.
Not in this.
No, not in this situation, not in this season. And there's I went to Invest Fest a month ago, and one of the speakers put out a question. You know, you're listening to these things absorbing, and then something, of course, kind of knocks you on your chin. And they said, what must you stop doing? And so when you talked about this, that question reemerged in my mind because I never answered it. Well, I did answer it, but I never did anything about it. Oh, I know what I need to stop doing, and I didn't stop. And it was like, okay, like who's mission critical? Who needs to be in the house to deal with this? If what you intend, Sheree, is for a breakthrough.
Right.
If you're not intending for a breakthrough, everybody could be here. Everybody could, you know.
Absolutely. You don't have to discern or discriminate if you're not working on anything.
Right.
If you're not working on anything, it's perfectly fine to spend time with people who only want to waste time. Because you're not working on anything, they're not working on anything, and so they want to waste time and they want to waste it with you. No problem. But if you have a project or a lifeline or something you got to get done, you sure as heck better be plugged into working with the people who can help you get to that objective.
Yes.
As opposed to spending time with folks who are just wasting time.
Right.
So
right.
if you're working on something, then you need I love the term mission critical people. If you're working on something, you absolutely had better be keyed into those mission critical people or mission critical powers, if you will, that support the demonstration you're seeking.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so here's the thing, people. I'm so excited about these rewinds. I think that it is so potent. I know that we talk about how a sermon is just one part of your study, right? That you get the sermon and it needs to move on information. So I always encourage people to take classes because when you understand, it's like if you take a language. Well, I'm getting the vocabulary. So now when I hear conversations, I understand more, right? So classes help you get the language so you can understand more of that sermon conversation. And these experiences are just sheer delight, right? Like that was fun. That was hot. I want to hear more about that thought. But it also, again, helps you to understand the language a little bit more as well. And so I'm so grateful for this idea. I'm in the seat right now, but I'm not going to always be in the seat. That for the rewind, we're gonna go live with these eventually, and you can come join us, jump in the seat, and ask your question about the clip that moved you. So we're gonna keep this thing going and growing. Thank you again, Reverend Wells, for sitting in a little extra longer for us today, so that we can really understand and pull the series together, so that we can put it into action. We can take this and stand up and walk better. And have a better experience in our life and be able to get through these things without so much drama, you know? I love it.
It's always a good time. I love being plugged in to the achievers who are working on unearthing the best version of themselves. And I think I agree with you. Like, I think this is an amazing platform by which to support our folks in doing that. And I'm excited to rock and roll with it together. If you have not yet subscribed to the CUT Collective Facebook page, it's a private group. Just if you're listening to this and you haven't done it yet, just do it right now as soon as you're done watching this. And we're excited about growing this as an opportunity by which to create community and support for those people who are committed, again, to becoming the best version of themselves. There is more for you to be, do, and have, and this is one of the vehicles that can help you get there.
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you so much. You all be blessed. I want you to take this and share it. All right. So he gave you one charge to join the community. I also want you to share it. We're putting it out there so that it can be shared. But eventually the rewinds are going to be for the community. Right. So I want you to get as many people engaged and involved with this, because there's somebody in your experience who needed to hear everything, or not even everything. They need to hear something that was said today. They need to hear it. Share this with them. We appreciate you for being a part of this. We in this thing together, and we'll be back next week with another rewind. We're still in the series of from breakdowns to breakthroughs, right?
We've got one more Sunday. Last Sunday
Okay.
is this coming Sunday.
Okay, all right. So we're going to wrap out this series on coming up next week, and I look forward to being with you again. You all have a beautiful day. See you soon.
Peace and blessings. Thank you, Rev.
You're welcome.